Everyone knows that Monday Night Raw has become the premier flagship show for television and has become arguably one of the literally the longest running weekly episodic TV shows in history. Only 5 shows besides Monday Night Raw can stake that claim. Those other Besides Monday Night Raw, there are 4 others. Excuse me. There's The Simpsons, Law and Order SVU, and there are 2 others that unfortunately I cannot name. I want to say it's Family Guy and and Friday Night SmackDown. Those are the top 5 longest running weekly episodic shows of all time. From the USA Network to TNN to Spike TV, back over to the USA Network, all the way to Netflix, Monday Night Raw has become a premier show for television. And as we are all fully aware, Monday Night Raw moved over to Netflix back in January earlier this year, and it became one of the most watched episodes of Raw in history. However, over time, yes, each episode has got better and better leading into WrestleMania, but what about after WrestleMania? Well, apparently there's been a lot of chatter that the ratings for Monday Night Raw have gone to an all-time low, forcing Netflix to potentially cut their ties with WWE. That brings us to today's video, because it appears that Netflix is going to be cutting Monday Night Raw off of their streaming service for good. But why? Well, as Trick Williams would always say, let's talk about it, because everyone knows, it's as I said, right? Monday Night Raw had been with the USA Network for a very, very long time. Not only since its inception back in 1993, but also as part of the homecoming episode of Monday Night Raw, all the way back in 2005, 2006, right around there. And from that homecoming episode up until the last episode that aired on the USA Network, Monday Night Raw became a staple to television. And with the Raw premiere on Netflix, ratings went up by more than 73%, which is incredible. However, that only lasted until after WrestleMania. Actually, until after the Raw after WrestleMania. Once that episode aired, everything started to go downhill from there. Ratings went down by more than 30%, and excuse me, and apparently, according to several news sources, including Sportskeeda, WrestleVote, and even also the Wrestling Observer, ratings have went down lower than NXT. And that's saying a lot, because NXT, ever since Stand and Deliver, ratings for NXT have slowly made their way back up, slowly and gradually. But this ties into the question of, where does WWE go from here? Let's say, hypothetically speaking, that Netflix does cut their ties with Monday Night Raw. They cut their ties with Raw. They cut their ties with WWE, and they remove everything WWE related from their streaming service. Where do they go from here? What's next for WWE? Well, there are quite a few options that they could choose from. They could choose to potentially move Monday Night Raw over to Hulu, because we know that WWE had a healthy relationship with Hulu, obviously with the original NXT that had Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal, and just to name a couple. It was on Hulu for quite some time, and then it moved over to the WWE Network up until 2019. They could potentially move it back over to the USA Network. The only issue is that the ratings for Monday Night Raw leading into the Netflix premiere were kind of mellowed out. They basically broke even, if you will. So I don't think it would work that way. Technically it would, but still. They could hypothetically speaking move Monday Night Raw to Fox. I mean, I know that WWE had such an incredible relationship with Fox, not only putting SmackDown on Fox, but also putting the show WWE Backstage on Fox on FS1, actually, if you can believe it. So there is that, but there is also Peacock, and I bring up Peacock because Peacock has had such an incredible relationship with WWE ever since they started putting the PLEs on Peacock. They've started to slowly but gradually bring in more and more fans to the product. Even with Monday Night Raw on Netflix, they've brought in more and more fans to the product, and even newer fans, people who watch Netflix can look at what's going on and say, oh, Monday Night Raw, this is live? Why not? Click, watch the product, and they would end up getting amazed by what's happening. Whether it's Seth Rollins doing kind of promo, whether it's CM Punk roasting the holy hell out of John Cena, whether it's main event Jey Uso simply just yeeting it, whatever. Netflix was the design of Raw being on Netflix was to not only get current fans involved in the product, and not just get new fans involved in the product, but also to expand the fan base, if you will, by more than at least 42%, which is something that WWE had been wanting for the longest time. And with Triple H running WWE now, one could argue that yes, definitely, this was a smart decision by WWE, but I even brought it up. I talked about this on a past episode of WWE's Biggest Issue. In fact, I think I talked about it last year, where the idea of Raw moving to Netflix could potentially be a bad idea because of the ratings and the fan base. And now my premonition, if you will, has come to pass. Obviously fans are aggravated by the fact that they have to deal with the ads that are on Netflix when you're watching Monday Night Raw. There was even a time, and case in point, when Raw was in Glasgow earlier this year, there were a couple times, there were quite a few times actually during that broadcast where the ads would come on, but you weren't really watching the ad, literally here in the US. I don't know if you guys, in those who watch my content here in the US. I don't know if you guys ever had this experience, but when I was watching Raw when it was live in Scotland, they would air the ads, but the ads wouldn't come on. It would just continue from where Monday Night Raw left off. Case in point, there was a tag team match that featured A Town Down Under and Jay Uso and a partner of his choice, and the partner of his choice ended up being his own twin, Jimmy Uso, hashtag Big Jim, and literally there were no ads. Like, it just continued from their entrance, and it just continued from there. And once the ads came, ended, it continued on from there, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you guys had that experience before, but that's what literally happened. And I find it weird that WWE already, let's see, January, February, March, April, May, June, already, like, what, 6 months in, literally we're almost 7 months. Okay, think about that. We are almost 7 months into Raw, Raw being live every Monday on Netflix, and already WWE is having problems according to Netflix, and this was actually reported by several news outlets, including WrestleVotes, Fightful, Sportskeeda, the Wrestling Observer, quite a few news outlets. Big shout outs to all of them. No copyrights, as always. Again, big shout out to them. It was reported by them and several others that Netflix is having trouble, or actually rather WWE is having trouble keeping the ratings up for Netflix. However, Netflix, if I can attempt to find it, Netflix, let's see. However, it's weird because Netflix has actually been pretty content. They've stated that they've been content with the ratings of what they're of the product, and it's weird because during the because as part of Netflix's Tudum site. Whoa. Oh my God, hang on, guys. There we go. Sorry, guys. I accidentally kicked my tripod. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, as part of Netflix's Tudum site, um, to give you a good example, the episode of Raw that was on the 26th last month drew 2.6 million global viewers across the 7-day calculation window from the 26th to June 1st. So this was actually enough for Raw to finish their sixth sixth place for the week amongst English language television shows, alongside Sirens with limited Sirens limited series leading the week with 18.2 million viewers, and Raw was ranked ninth, during that week. So it moved up the ladder in spite of dropping viewers, and overall they usually draw in well over 5 million viewers overall, but but the total audience, if you will, had declined by 100,000 from the previous week of the May 26th episode of Raw, going down to 2.7 million. So overall, WWE gets usually about 5 million viewers, and that dropped from that to 4.8 overall, which is insane, but it's still a pretty high number. So it's possible that WWE could potentially it's possible that we could potentially see Raw stay on Netflix, but no one knows for how long, because the less viewers WWE gets for Raw, the higher the chances are that we could potentially see Monday Night Raw move back over to the USA Network, or move to some other network at some point. Is it possible? Absolutely, 100%. But I feel like the only way that WWE could fix this is if, and this might sound crazy, but the only way that they could fix that is if WWE put the World Heavyweight title on someone else. Because right now, the title is currently being held by Gunther after what happened last week on Raw, making Jey Uso pass out to the sleeper. How ironic. So it comes down to who could be the one to dethrone Gunther and take the title off of him. Crazy as it sounds, I don't think it's going to be Sami Zayn. As crazy as it sounds, I don't think it's going to be Sami Zayn. In fact, I feel like it has to be someone that is a top level star on Monday Night Raw, and it has to be. I don't think it's Jay. I think it has to be either Logan Paul or Roman Reigns, one or the other. So if that were to be the case, imagine how high the ratings would be if that were to be the case, right? If a guy like Logan Paul or a guy like Roman Reigns were to be World Heavyweight Champion, maybe it could be Seth Rollins winning, via the Money in the Bank briefcase. Very possible. But that part will be for tomorrow's episode of WWE's Biggest Issue, where I will be talking about Gunther's reign and what's next for him. But I will say, I think it's all right. I think the only way that WWE could fix the ratings for the ratings on Netflix is if they did picture-in-picture commercial breaks. If they were to do that like they do on SmackDown and on NXT, I've got no doubt in my mind the ratings will go up even higher. Because right now the ratings for NXT, let's see. The current ratings for NXT has generated up to 726,000 viewers, which is about a 6 to 10% increase compared to the last month, if you will, because the last month has only generated up to 680,000 viewers overall. So the fact that that's happening, and SmackDown's current ratings and SmackDown's current ratings has actually went up by 3% from what I'm seeing here. So the fact that that's happening is proof that WWE needs to fix Monday Night Raw. How? Simple. By adding in picture-in-picture commercial breaks, and also adding another major player to Monday Night Raw. One of them could very may well be Mr. Iguana from AAA. Then again, it could also be Octagon Jr. It could be Aerostar. It could be Pagano, Psycho Clown. It could be Laredo Kid. It could be literally anybody. Hell, for all we know, it could be Alberto El Patron. For all we know, or Alberto Del Rio, if you guys remember that name. It could be him for all we know. But I will say that Raw and Netflix has been very interesting these last over the last year. So I've got a feeling that the second half of this year is going to get even more interesting, to say the very least. But is it possible that Netflix could cut their ties with WWE? Possibly, but that's entirely up to WWE and what they do for the foreseeable future. But with that being said, that'll do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want more WWE topic videos in the future, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and as always, make sure you guys are following me on all of my social media. All of my ads will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be down in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.